The good news is we're all in this together. And when we see we're together, we can work things out. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey and the famous Tom Fennell
in the flesh.
Tom is the guy who actually gets things done around here, which is why he always looks like a deer with his in the headlights, because he's watching.
I'm looking at the monitor.
He's the program engineer.
This is what I do.
Yeah, there you go. It's all done with magic.
Smoke and mirrors.
Smoke and mirrors. Every day I get up and do my thing on the internet, find articles related to energy and climate change. And I put together, for each article, I find a 50 or 55 word synopsis, which is packaged with a link to the original article, and 10 to 15 of these go up at the blog, which is geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. And we are going to start reporting articles that appeared on March 1st. Today is March 8th as we record this, so we're starting a week earlier. And we will try to keep you apprised of what date we're working from, so you can go to the blog, geoharvey.com, click on the date on the calendar, and then that'll take you to a block of 10 to 15 articles that will include, hopefully, the article we're talking about.
I usually poke my head in about this time and I say that, that I have read all of these in advance.
Wow, amazing.
George warns me. And some of these are well worth pursuing.
Some of them are amazing.
If I particularly liked one, I'll try to recall that for you. Because some of these are, well, as I said, worth pursuing. We don't have time to do it here.
Yeah.
I mean, we could, on some of these, spend the whole show just discussing one of these.
Absolutely, we could. And there's a couple of them that I really think we should, as a matter of fact. And one of those appears in this. But let's start with a thing from March 1st. This is from the Atlantic, and
we got a little picture coming.
We have a picture here, yes.
Let's see if I can't find that one.
Of sunny Rome.
Sunny Rome. What is that white stuff on the roof?
Oh my
God!
Brattleboro. It looks like Brattleboro today. Yeah.
And what are those two guys over there with the geese sitting on top?
I don't know.
I think it's the tomb of the unknown soldier.
It is actually.
I don't know what the geese-looking
I
things
think
are.
those are angels with wings riding on chariots, and the things to the left of them are horses.
That could be. That could be.
But they do look like geese, don't they? You know what that reminds me of, Tom, was I was driving, when I lived in Massachusetts down by the shore, I was driving one day and I looked up in the sky in front of me and I saw a goose flying along.
Not unusual.
And I thought, wait a minute, that goose is flying backwards.
Oh.
It was a heron.
A heron.
It was a heron. They tuck their necks back, and then they have their legs trailing out behind them, and the legs trailing behind look like the neck and head of a goose. Anyway, this is from the Atlantic, and we have that picture of.
I'll put the picture back up.
Picture back up. Okay.
Well, that is Rome, and London also had snow, which is rare.
Yeah.
And we'll be discussing that immediately, if not sooner.
What's the title?
Parts of the Arctic spiked to 45 degrees above normal.
This is crazy. The sun
45 above normal.
Yeah. What would happen if we were 45 degrees above normal?
We'd be going out in bikinis.
Not I'm sorry. I refuse to wear a bikini. The sun has not shone on Cape Morris Jesup, which is the northernmost point in Greenland, since October 11th. These should be among the coldest weeks of the year for the Cape, but over the weekend, the weather station there recorded air temperatures of 43 degrees, more than 50 degrees normal than for this time of year. Meanwhile, Europe is freezing cold.
Well, for reference, last weekend in Brattleboro, Saturday was 36 and Sunday was 35.
Yeah.
And here is the Arctic.
At 40.
Northern Greenland at 43.
43, yeah. Crazy. This is the pattern that we've seen, and this is progressing more and more.
Well, there's some stuff going on.
Yeah.
The end of February, satellite observations show two large open water gaps in the Arctic ice.
Yes.
Which they shouldn't see any this time of
Yes,
year.
right.
Okay, one is near Russia. The second one is just north of this Cape Morris.
Yeah.
And the Arctic is on track to set a new record this year for the smallest extent of winter sea ice ever recorded.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's half of the equation. The other half is a cold front dubbed the Beast from the East has moved from Russia to occupy much of Europe, which is why this picture
the picture,
is
absolutely.
what it is. Okay,
Yeah.
Several inches of snow fell in Rome and London, which never happens.
Yeah.
Okay, temperatures in Italy are about 30 degrees Fahrenheit below normal, while the Arctic was almost 50 degrees warmer than normal. And there's a cause for this. It's called a polar vortex.
Yeah.
We had one here in December.
Yeah.
And what happens is the cold air from the poles shifts downward.
Yes.
It started here in the Midwest and moved east, and we had a very cold end of December.
Yes.
This is what's happening in Europe, at least it was what happened in Europe
Yep.
last week.
Yep. And this is a pattern that is actually predictable with climate change, that you have more extreme weather.
More of this kind of stuff is happening.
Yes.
Or going to continue happening.
Okay. Our next item comes from Montreal Gazette.
Yeah, this is an interesting thing. We're going to touch base on two of these in a row. It's very related. It's called a crypto craze. Has Hydro-Quebec's CEO's phone ringing off the hook?
CEO of Hydro-Quebec said it has received hundreds of applications from cryptocurrency miners in the past few weeks for a total of over 9,000 megawatts of energy. That is about 1/4 of the utility's total generating capacity of 37,000 megawatts. Hydro-Quebec said last month it was in talks with more than 30 such companies. 9,000 megawatts, I'm going to guess, is about 4, 5, 6 times the amount of electricity needed to power Vermont.
Probably right. It's more than Hydro-Quebec can even deliver.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And this is something, well, we can talk about what I was just about to say when we deal with the next article.
Well, the next article is going to cover this in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, and we have a picture for the next article, so do you want to just slip into that one? This is an article
just to touch up on Hydro-Quebec,
Yeah.
because their power is so cheap,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people want to move up there.
Yes.
And in addition to these guys who are mining,
Yep.
okay, and we'll explain that in a second.
Yep.
There are data centers that are moving up there
Yes.
too.
Yes, same
They
thing
use
that's
a lot
happening
of
in
power.
Iceland.
They want cheap power.
Yep. Now our next item is from the New York Times, and it also has to do with Bitcoin.
Yeah. Okay, this one. This is a question, but we'll touch base on what's
okay,
going on
yes.
a little bit. Is a Bitcoin a waste of electricity, or something worse?
Or is it something worse? Money is supposed to be a means of buying things. Now the nation's hottest investment is buying money. And while Bitcoin mining may not be labor intensive, it diverts time, energy, and capital from other more productive activities that economists say could fuel faster growth. And you know, Tom, I have tried for a couple of weeks now, periodically, every once in a while, I say there's got to be some explanation for this, to try to find out whether there's actually any useful product from Bitcoin mining or whether they're just wasting electricity.
I think we'll touch base on that in a second, but
Yeah.
I'll get some picture up. There
Yes.
is a picture of two Bitcoin miners,
Yes.
the machine and the man.
And the man
And
is
they're both
actually
called
there
Bitcoin
just to
miners.
serve the machine.
Huh?
He's just there to serve the machine.
And by the way, just to clarify things, cryptocurrency, cybercurrency, cybercoins, bitcoins, basically they're the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's virtual money created by a computer.
Right.
And let's see, I got a couple of things to say about that.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what you've got to say.
Well, bitcoins are distributed in a kind of lottery where each ticket is purchased with electricity. Okay, and these miners, and you'll see the miner there, okay, the machine or the guy, they compete for the coins using computers to calculate answers to difficult math problems.
And
Okay.
that's part of the problem I've got. Difficult and apparently useless math problems.
Absolutely. It can be lucrative.
It can be lucrative.
Each Bitcoin is currently worth about 10 grand.
Yeah.
I mean, when they first came out, I think they were 88 cents.
We talked about this last week. There was a thing where there were 2 pizzas purchased with, I think it was 10,000 Bitcoins.
Okay.
2 pizzas.
2 pieces.
2 pizzas.
2 pizzas.
2 pizzas.
2 pieces of pizza with 10,000 Bitcoins.
Two complete pizzas.
Wow. In practice, it's a speculative investment like gold.
Except
Okay.
that I don't think it's an investment at all.
Well, that's the whole point. It appears that much of our evolving digital infrastructure is devoted to activities like the proliferation of cybercoins that are worse than frivolous. That's the Federal Reserve Bank comment.
Yeah,
Okay.
in which a lot of people have accused the Federal Reserve of being worse than frivolous. But that's okay.
What's going on here is these are speculative things.
Yeah.
And because there's money to be made, a lot of people are investing in these machines or in the ability to purchase the power to run the machines.
Right. And my take on this is that what they've done is they've produced a situation where they're saying, this is hard to do, it's not easy. If you do it, we will issue you a proof of purchase, or proof of work, rather.
Well, you don't get a physical coin.
No, you don't get a physical coin.
It's all done electronically.
Right. And somebody may actually value that proof of work.
Well,
even though it didn't do anything
It's more
that
than
anybody
somebody.
wanted.
It's a lot of people right
Yeah.
now.
Even though nothing was done that anybody put value on, somebody is putting value on
Absolutely.
this
It's
thing.
speculative.
And there are reasons why that happens. I mean,
It's called greed.
well, people want to transfer money without having it be traceable, and that
That's
can be
one of
done.
the big uses of Bitcoin.
Yeah, and so the thing has got value because it can't be traceable, but it's what? Anyway, we could talk about that all day. I think we should probably go on to
Move on to the next one.
the next one. This is Friday,
Got a
March
picture
2nd.
coming up, yeah.
I'm sorry about the quality of this picture. It's much lower resolution than I would like to use, and it also reminds me of something from a Fellini movie,
Okay.
Juliet of the Spirits. She
I
goes.
never saw it. So.
Well, I don't know whether it's a floating island or what, but it does remind me of it. This is from Science Magazine.
Well, this is what you're looking at is called a polder, and it's an artificial island.
Yep.
It happens to be in Bangladesh.
Yeah.
Okay. And I had a hard time accessing this article.
Oh, did you really?
Oh, I just couldn't access it. Went through the back door, searched. It took me about a half an hour, and I finally picked up the article. Science Magazine has a strong paywall, and they wanted me to sign up.
Of course. You know what I do, by the way, is I have an incognito window on my computer, and the incognito window does not identify itself as the same computer as my computer when I go to a site.
Somehow you're able to get through, and I wasn't.
And a lot of times they see something coming in from Google, it's identified, the URL is changed, and so that it will no longer look like it's coming from Google. And then, so what I do is I take that URL and put it into the incognito window and try to see if I can access it using that. And if I can, I assume that that site works.
Well,
But-
I got it, or at least I got basically the same thing. So let's talk about that. It's
Okay.
called bending to the water's will.
Right. In flood-prone Bangladesh, resilience can mean letting water have its way. As climate change brings threats of rising seas and stronger storms, people who have spent years building barricades are considering what was once unthinkable, letting the water in and be resilient by bending, not resisting.
Well, what's going on here is the country of Bangladesh is about 25% swamp.
Yes.
This mangrove swamp sitting down there in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
Okay, and the people living there have borrowed a tool from the Dutch.
Right. Which is where the word polder comes
That's
from.
where it comes from. The Dutch have been doing this for centuries.
Centuries.
They build these artificial islands and people live on them.
Right.
And what's going on here is the islands were built. Well, I'll read from what I've got here.
Okay.
Many Bangladeshis live on artificial islands called polders, behind walls built to protect low-lying islands from floods. But in Bangladesh, anyhow, the polders are disrupting sediment deposits and face climate change pressures. The ocean's rising.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's harder than ever to keep the water out. So that's what this article is about, is how they can keep the water out, keep their polders, keep living there. And it's a very interesting article.
It is indeed.
If you can't find, let's say if you pull up this Science magazine,
You won't get there.
you're not going well, you might. You know, I couldn't get there with my browser, but
Yeah.
you might. But if you don't, grab one of the headlines and Google
Do a Google search on the
search
headline.
on a sentence. And that
Yeah.
was how I finally got it.
Good for
And
you.
it turned out that what came up was a YouTube.
Oh, really?
And it was a YouTube just about exactly this.
Oh, nice.
Which itself was interesting.
Good.
And it had a click there. It had a link. And I clicked on the link and the article popped up.
Oh, my gosh. There you go. Okay.
So let's move along.
Okay, our next one is from The Hill.
Ah, yes. Trump's attack on booming clean energy sector hurts American workers. Huh?
Yeah.
No.
There was a good one about this today in the news, which we'll talk about next week. His tariffs on steel and aluminum
Yeah.
end up raising
kinda stupid.
the prices of everything GE makes.
Well, that's interesting.
And General Electric had a bad year last year.
Yeah, they did. We'll be talking about
Now
that.
all of a sudden they've got $123 billion worth of orders that they are looking at that they can fill, but with this tariff they may have to raise the price on every one of them.
Craziness.
So, which means that their customers can say, no, we don't want to do that. Okay, a rapidly growing U.S. Clean energy sector means good jobs across the country. The fastest growing jobs are in solar and wind power. But despite all the rhetoric about supporting jobs, the Trump administration keeps trying to downshift.
Well, last winter, Trump tried to propose massive cuts in research and development
Yes.
at the Department of Energy.
Yes?
Congress intervened. Okay. Now it's a year later, Trump is doing it again.
Yes.
Okay.
We don't want to be the world leader in science. What does that do for our money?
Well, I'm saying this now, but what's happening is going to help only one country, and it ain't going to be us.
China.
Bingo.
Everything
Meanwhile,
Trump does helps China.
China is working to dominate the clean energy industry and will capitalize the progress that the U.S. has started.
Boy,
We're putting
are
them
they
in-
ever doing it.
We're putting them in a catbird seat.
They are absolutely taking advantage of everything that happens in Washington if they can, and most of the things that are going on in Washington these days can.
And he's making
help
it
China.
easy for them.
He is indeed. Okay,
Boy, oh boy.
should we go on?
Yeah, we should.
We've got a very short article from Renews.
Yeah, let's get this picture up here because it's interesting.
Now, I should point out, I don't remember the dimensions of that thing, but it seems
It's very large.
it seems to me it's like 18 meters across, that box.
That's about as big as a bus.
That's bigger than a
Bigger
bus. I think you
even
could.
than a bus.
I think that black box on the side of there.
Yeah.
I think that's the second-story window for the guy who lives there. I'm just kidding.
Well, GE launches a 12-megawatt giant.
12
and to put it in
megawatts.
perspective, up until now, the biggest offshore turbine was 8.5 megawatts. And
Yeah,
I think GE was making that one.
Yeah, and the blades on this wind turbine are approximately the length of a football field, including the end zones.
It's bigger. 107 meters. That's 350 feet.
Yeah, including the end zones.
Yeah.
It's actually bigger than the football field with the end zones. Okay,
Well-
what's the title?
GE launches 12 megawatt giant.
Yeah, I think you read that
I think
already.
I did too.
GE Renewable Energy has unveiled a 12 megawatt offshore wind turbine named the Haliade X. I don't know if that's right pronunciation.
Sounds good to me.
It's okay. That it claims will produce 45% more power than any machine currently on the market. The direct drive machine will feature a 220 meter rotor with blades of 107 meters made by LM Wind Power. It will offer a gross capacity factor of 63%. At 63% capacity, the capacity factor of this wind turbine is similar to the capacity factor of many fossil fuel plants.
Yeah, so this thing's going to be running almost all the time.
Yeah.
More than half the time. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh, way, way, way more. Yeah, it's going to be running actually about 99.9% of the time. It's just not going to be running at full capacity. You know, as we've been saying, this thing is huge. Absolutely.
This is very big, guys. This is
Yeah.
very big. And I don't think it's the end of bigness.
I don't think so either, but I will tell you another thing, and that is that I doubt very much that there's any birds that fly at the height of those blades. And this is over water. These things, these
birds
things are
aren't
not
gonna
going to
be
be
a
killing
problem.
birds. They're not going to be keeping people awake. They're not going to be. There's a whole bunch of things. But you know, the anti-wind people are going to object to it anyway.
No, it's out in the ocean. How are they going to know?
If they'll know that it's there and they'll object, and
Yeah.
you know, I mean, there's a fair
I can see it.
part of that
Here,
group.
take my binoculars.
Yeah, there's a fairly large part of that group that is funded to object.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so now we're up to Saturday, March 3rd, and we've got an item from News, which is NYOOOZ.
News.
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 This is an Indian news agency.
World's largest solar park launched in Karnataka.
Karnataka.
Karnataka. Which is
Karnataka.
yeah, Karnataka.
I practiced this, I know.
Oh, okay. That's a state in the southwestern corner of India.
Right.
India.
Yeah. The world's largest solar park, set up at an investment of 16,500 crore rupees, which happens to come out to $2.48 billion, in Karnataka, was launched by the state's chief minister, whose name I left out of this thing because I couldn't pronounce it. The 2,000 megawatt park, called the Shakti Sthala, covers 13,000 acres spread over 5 villages, and is a benchmark of the unique people's participation in power model put on the ground according to officials. Now they're building these things in 5 villages, and the people in the villages are going to stay there.
Yeah. I do mention that. That's pretty good news. This is 13,000 acres.
Yes.
That's 20 square miles.
Yes.
This is big. Okay. 600 megawatts just came online in December.
Yep.
Another 1,400 megawatts at the end of the year.
Yep.
So they got 2,000 megawatts there.
Yep.
Among the beneficiaries, this is the interesting thing, among the beneficiaries of the project were 2,300 farmers who leased their land for $300 an acre.
We have a video coming up. You saw that video about the farmers in Michigan.
Did I?
I
think I did.
You may have read it.
I did. Yeah. Well, we'll get to that.
And it explains, you know, farmers all over the world benefit from wind power.
Well, it's a good crop. You don't
It's
have
a
to
good
do any
crop.
work, and
It's
you
a
get
good crop.
you get some money. No, farmers are winners with.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Especially if they can grow something underneath it. And there are some things that will grow well underneath the wind.
There's a lot of things that'll grow under wind turbines, and you know, in some parts of the world, a farm can be like 1/10 of an acre. That's one of the problems they had in.
Like in Bangladesh.
Well, yeah, I would imagine in Bangladesh that could be true. Okay, we've got our next item coming up from Reuters, and we have a picture for that.
We do.
Every time I see it.
That's Los Angeles.
Yeah, and I look at that thing, and the first thing that comes to mind is the logo for Columbia TriStar. Because of the clouds.
You're watching too many movies.
Maybe I am.
Los Angeles making plans for sudden shocks and long-term calamity.
And this is, I think, is important.
This is an important article.
Facing the risks of earthquakes, rising heat, and increasing energy demands, Los Angeles is kicking off a strategy to make itself more resilient, city officials said. The plans to strengthen infrastructure and promote renewable energy aim to combine preparations for earthquakes and wildfires with chronic stresses such as climate change.
They're doing their homework here. They're looking at the future, they're looking at the past, and they're saying, what do we got to prepare for?
Right.
And this is a plan, and it seems like a good one.
It seems like they got a plan.
One goal is to make earthquake early warning technology available to all residents.
There you go.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
A catastrophic quake is inevitable and long overdue.
Yes.
That's what the article said. The coastal city is not far from the San Andreas Fault.
Yes.
You've all heard of that one.
Yep.
A rupture of the fault caused a massive San Francisco earthquake back in 1906, which is historic. I mean,
Yes.
Another is to reduce the so-called urban heat islands. Okay?
There you go.
In a city, you got all sorts of offices. They get too hot,
Yes.
and they're going to try and do something about that
Right.
by planting more trees, among
We
other
we
things.
have an urban heat island here in Brattleboro.
Do we?
Yeah, absolutely. The temperature at the house where I live is always warmer than during the winter than the weather service says it's going to be by several degrees.
The temperature at the house?
Yeah. In the backyard,
yeah.
on the porch, you know,
Yeah.
just looking.
Just because of close proximity to what
There are a lot of houses around there, you know, and they all warm things up slightly.
Another thing they're going to do is prepare the residents for self-sufficiency for at least 7 days by 2022 by modernizing the grid to boost the use of renewable energy by 2036
Good idea.
and
I think.
investing in stormwater retention to reduce flooding risks. So, you know, they're doing their homework there.
They are. Okay, we're up to Sunday, March 4th.
Well, this is an interesting one.
We have an item from the Register Guard.
Snowpack drops over decades. Boom.
Yeah.
Not a good sign.
Not a good sign. Scientists have found dramatically declining snowpack across the American West over the past 6 decades that will likely cause water shortages for the region that cannot be managed by building new reservoirs. According to
That's the scary part.
according to a study led by researchers from Oregon State University and the University of California, Los Angeles, building reservoirs is not going to manage this.
Well, they won't be able to build them fast enough.
Not only that, but they won't fill.
They won't fill, yeah. Drops in the snow measurement are between 15 and 30% in a century. Okay, instead of snowing, it's raining.
Yeah.
And they can't keep the rain. The snow sits there, melts slowly. They've been using it for a century.
And it gets absorbed a lot of it gets absorbed into the land where
Into the ground, but
rain
just runs right off.
Yeah.
They're in trouble here. Eastern Oregon and northern Nevada are in the worst shape.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay. Health thoroughfare.
Ah. You got me with that one.
Okay.
Scientists have installed ocean acidity sensors in Alaska. We got a picture coming up too. It's a nice picture.
Yeah, actually, I had this on my thing out of order, so I thought the picture
this
wasn't
is a nice
for
picture.
this.
That's a
This is a pretty
spot.
picture. Scientists have installed ocean acidity sensors in Alaska in the Kachemak Bay.
Now, put that up
Ocean
again.
water acidification is due to high levels of carbon dioxide that are absorbed by the water, and this leads to lowering pH levels in addition to climate change. Lower pH levels of seawater have been proved to negatively impact marine animals. Now, I mean, if you think about it, if you took a minnow and you put it in a glass full of seltzer water, it would die.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening.
That's what's happening.
The acidification.
Without the bubbles.
You don't see the bubbles, but you know
They're
they're there.
Yeah.
What's happening is the carbon dioxide most of the carbon dioxide we release into the atmosphere is going into the sea, and there is enough of it that the acidity of the sea is increasing,
Right.
measurably
You don't
increasing.
get bubbles like you get in Pepsi Cola, but you're getting more acid water.
You're getting more acid water, and that acidity is doing things like causing things to dissolve that should not be dissolving.
Again. It's just so pretty.
Isn't it?
I love mountains with snow, you know.
I do too.
That's Kachemak Bay. which is on the southern Atlantic coast between Anchorage and Kodiak.
Yes,
Okay, so that's southern Alaska.
southern Alaska. Okay. Should we move on?
I think we should.
You want to keep that picture up just because it looks nice? It looks better than I do. We have
Now
an
let's
item
move
from
on to a little bit warmer place.
Okay, we have an item from CNN.
$200 million in supplies heading to Puerto Rico to fix the power grid.
Why didn't they
It's
do this
about
months
time.
ago?
Yeah.
More than $200 million worth of materials are expected to arrive in Puerto Rico this month to help the Army Corps of Engineers hit its goal of 95% power restoration by the end of the month. Over 7,000 poles and nearly 400 miles of conductor wire are expected in the next 2 weeks, the Corps District Commander said.
Well, as of last week, on average, 87% of the island has its power back.
On average.
On average. That number's lower to about 50% in the interior. Okay?
Yeah.
And the biggest reason why they're taking so long has been lack of materials.
What excuse is there for that?
Well, I don't know, because these poles came from South Carolina and they were harvested in January. And it's taken them a month to get to Puerto Rico. You can get
They
to
could
Puerto
have
Rico in about
harvested-
6 hours by plane.
Yeah, but why were they harvested in January as opposed to October?
Well, that's another good question. They probably sold the previous
I don't know.
poles, but
This is
somebody's not thinking. In any case, the contractors restoring the power hope to leave the island by mid-April.
Yeah, I'd want to get off Puerto Rico as fast as I could if I were restoring power, because I'd think that everybody would be mad at me.
Well,
Maybe they're not. Puerto Ricans are not.
It's kind of rough living there, and they're, they're not getting the support from the government that say Houston got.
Or which Miami Beach would get if.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this is they're citizens down there of the United States, but
Well,
they're definitely
People
second-class
forget
citizens.
that,
Yeah. Okay.
People forget it.
We are up to Monday, March 5th.
This is an interesting little article.
It comes from the Minneapolis Star-Tribune.
Community solar garden will be the latest economic addition to Minneapolis.
I loved this article. The first community solar garden on the near north side of Minneapolis will rise this spring on a church rooftop, thanks to a coalition of faith partners, clean energy advocates, and industry experts, job trainers, and community members. It will provide enough electricity for the church, a mosque, and 26 households. It's like, yeah, let's all work together. I don't know.
Well, this is part of a program. This is
Yes.
just the first one. And there's a program in Minneapolis to push this kind of stuff all throughout the city.
Yes.
Using churches as the sort of the centerpiece of it.
Yes.
Which makes a lot of sense.
It does indeed, but I just find this whole thing delightful. There's a nice picture there of people from the church, people from the mosque, and people from the neighborhood.
Interesting.
together.
There's an interesting company behind this. It's called Interfaith Power and Light. It's
Yes.
true. It really
Yes,
is.
I know. I just,
And they operate in Vermont too.
yeah, they do. Okay, our next item is from the BBC.
We got a gargoyle coming up here.
I want to tell you something, by the way. I have.
He doesn't look happy.
No, he doesn't. I have actually, myself, with my hand, touched a gargoyle.
Have you really?
I did. Not
And you
that
live
gargoyle.
and you live to talk about
I
it.
live to talk about it. In fact, that gargoyle is my friend. When I was a kid, my brother and I went up Belharry Tower in Canterbury Cathedral in Canterbury, in England. And they had a guided tour, but the tour guide he had some appointment, so he said to everybody, listen, you find your own way down. It's easy. You just go down the way you came up. Well, one of the things that you do is you go on catwalks that are above the ceiling of the nave, but below the roof of the cathedral. And my brother and I walked down the catwalk, and we said, wait a minute, we're supposed to turn right here, but what if we turn left? And we went and we found a door, and the door opened into a rain gutter, which was deep enough that you could walk in it, and it was, like more than waist deep. And there were gargoyles there. We didn't.
Well, that's what these gargoyles are. They're rain gutters.
Yep.
The whole idea of them is to keep the rainwater from pouring down the sides of the building.
Yes, that's right.
So they extend it out.
Yes.
And they use their imagination and they come up with critters like this.
Yeah. Anyway, this is from the BBC.
Cracks in a cathedral.
The Catholic Church in France has launched an urgent appeal for funds to save the Cathedral of Notre-Dame in Paris. Parts of the 850-year-old Gothic masterpiece are starting to crumble because of pollution that is eating the stone. There are
scary.
fears the structure itself could become unstable. There are pictures in this article that are, I think, somewhat disturbing. And what does it say there?
There's a 2-minute video here.
Yeah.
That's worth looking at.
Yes, it is. What did they say for the price of this? Was it 180?
100 million euros if they can pay for it within the next 20 years.
100 million euros,
euros.
which is about $105 million, which is what they want.
They got a lot of problems. They got a 300-foot spire rising above the cathedral that's about to fall down.
Yeah, well, that would make a
The
mess.
oak beams from the 12th century are kind of rotten. And the flying buttresses, which are they're the hallmark of a Gothic cathedral. They're these things.
They're the thing that makes, one of the things that make
make
Notre
it-
Dame really famous is its flying buttresses.
Well, they're very attractive to look at.
I knew about
They're holding
this
the walls up,
cathedral's,
basically.
yeah, I knew about this cathedral's flying buttresses before I was in 5th grade. And
Well, if you can picture in your mind's eye a cathedral, a real European, you're going to see the flying buttresses in your mind's eye. 'Cause
you
they're
do.
inseparable.
I think most people don't.
They're
They don't.
inseparable.
They,
You
no.
just don't know what they are.
They don't have them at Canterbury.
They don't, huh?
No, they don't.
Uh-huh.
And I know of a couple of other that don't have any, but they did have them here. And they allowed the architects to build really tall buildings.
Yeah.
So, anyway, next item from the Guardian. We ready for that?
I think I am. Yes,
Okay.
it is the Guardian.
Yeah.
Seaweed shuts nuclear reactor again in bad weather.
Roving jellyfish and seaweed are unwanted guests at nuclear power stations. Now the marine algae has hit again, forcing one plant in Scotland to partially power down just as freezing temperatures are pushing up the demand for electricity. During the cold weather, excessive amounts of seaweed shut one reactor at the Torness station down. See,
These
this is,
things, they're using seawater to cool it off.
yeah,
And wildlife,
jellyfish,
jellyfish,
Seaweed.
is clogging the vents, clogging the intakes.
yeah. So what we're talking about here with nuclear power, does that mean that nuclear power is intermittent?
I think it does.
Yeah. Okay, we're up to Tuesday.
This is a big thing in Scotland because it furnishes about a third of Scotland's energy.
Yeah,
There's two reactors there. Taken together, they're
about a third, but it was only one reactor that was taken
correct.
offline.
Correct.
Okay, we're up to Tuesday, March 6th.
Let's see.
We have an item
Here
from
we-
the
we got a
from
picture
Clean
coming up,
Technica,
too.
and the picture is of the Kemper Clean Coal plant.
We'll talk
At a
about
point
that
when
in
they
a
were
second.
building
Yeah,
it
we'll
still,
talk
which
about
they're
that
not doing anymore. Now they're taking it down.
No, they're taking it down. How lies, greed, and mismanagement blew up the clean coal myth.
The clean coal and carbon capture process was promised to make electricity with the lowest carbon footprint of any fossil fuels. The problem is they lied. Despite investments of hundreds of millions of dollars by the federal government, the technology does not work.
Well, I'm going to read this one because it says it better than I can.
Yeah.
Clean coal, it was supposed to be the alchemist's dream, the real world equivalent of spinning straw into gold. What clean coal is all about is taking lignite,
Yes.
brown coal, the lowest grade of coal, putting it into a pressurized chamber, heating it under great pressure. The resulting gas, and I don't know what the gas is, but it's got to be rich in hydrogen, is collected and used to make electricity. Sounds good. Sequestering most of the carbon emissions from the lignite at the same time. If it worked, the clean coal and carbon capture progress would not only make electricity, it would do so with the lowest carbon footprint of any fossil fuel, including natural gas. The problem is clean coal technology just doesn't work.
And if you want to find out why, read this article. It's in Clean Technica. This is Tuesday, March 6th at
Well, I'll give you
Geo
a quick
Harvey.
preview. What is really at issue here is the lies, double dealing, deliberate misrepresentations, and obfuscations carried out at the highest levels of the Southern Company, which owns the plant, with the aid of Mississippi officials involved in covering up a massive scandal.
Yeah, and you know what? The people who are doing this still complain about Solyndra.
Yeah.
What can you say? Okay,
So
Solyndra was
scam
a.
was basically what's going on. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure that at least some of them thought it was going to work.
I have no doubt that a lot
But
of them
it
thought it
didn't.
was going to work,
It-
but
it-
it, you know, this is what Donald Trump wants to put our future
We're
into.
talking about clean coal.
Clean
Doesn't
coal,
work.
clean, beautiful coal.
Yeah.
The problem is he's telling us that we have this wonderful future with beautiful, clean coal.
Beautiful is one
And
of the
nobody's-
three adjectives he knows, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. In the pilot plants just haven't.
They haven't done their homework.
We haven't got anything running.
No,
and
they don't
he's
have the
he's giving us.
technology. It's a dream.
Yeah, it's a pie in the sky, is what it's called. Okay, we have an item here from Utility Dive.
It's a little bit more local.
Yeah.
Residential storage eligible for investment tax credit when charged by on-site solar. This is an interesting development.
Yes, it is. The Internal Revenue Service released a private letter ruling determining that a residential energy storage may qualify for federal solar tax credits as it is charged if it is charged completely by an on-site solar array. The ruling only applies to a single case, the case of the
So
people.
far.
So far.
Yeah.
But it does indicate that the agency staff views the application of the tax law in a specific situation in the way that it did in that
Which
case.
means that it could influence future legislation.
It could.
Future,
It could also mean that other people who are putting batteries or planning on putting batteries in with their solar array are going to have opportunities to file for this same thing, and it'll probably be easier than the first person.
I think you're right. I think it looks good for that.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one here. This is also interesting.
Yep. This is from The Scientist.
U.S. scientists running for office in record numbers.
There's only one member of Congress who currently holds a PhD in science. Can you believe that?
Well, I can because I just read it.
Yeah, but Bill Foster, a Democrat from Illinois, a physicist who formerly worked for Fermi National Accelerator Laboratory, may soon have some company. More than 60 candidates running for federal office in 2018 have backgrounds in science and technology, according to HuffPost.
An interesting sidelight is a lot of women are starting to run too. That hasn't been happening before.
Yes, a lot.
A lot of them.
And a few of them I would back for president.
Yeah, some of them are
Absolutely.
qualified.
Yep. Tulsi Gabbard being one. And anybody who wants to find out about Tulsi Gabbard, look her up.
Yep.
She's in the Congress now. She's well, we'll go on.
Well, a little takeaway from here. This is why it's happening. This is from a quote from Foster.
Yes.
Okay. The attacks on science and the scientific method, and just generally the disrespect for scientific truth, is something that has all scientists on edge. I've always had a hard time understanding why members of Congress like to tell scientists how to conduct their research.
Yes.
Scientists should set the standards for research, not politicians.
Yes.
Bingo.
Absolutely. Okay.
Moving along here.
We're moving
getting
along
ahead
at
of the game here.
a
We got a picture
vicious clip, and we are up to Wednesday, March
picture
7th.
coming up.
And if we get done early, as I'm sure we will, I'll talk about Tulsi Gabbard.
There's a nice 7-minute video on this site.
Yeah.
We can't show it here because we're not set up for it, but it's well worth watching.
Yeah, this is the one that I thought
the
maybe
one you
we should do a show about this particular subject. We talked about it earlier. The idea that farmers in was it Bangladesh are profiting from the wind turbines, but this is farmers in Michigan profiting from wind turbines, and the profit has their profiting from wind turbines has ramifications that run through the fabric of society in that area, as you will see. This is from Yale Climate Connections.
Michigan farmers and residents praise wind power.
Research from the University of Michigan found that farmers with wind turbines on their property are more likely in fact much more likely, to pass their farmlands on to their children or other relatives, and twice as likely to continue investing in their homes and property as farmers lacking wind energy resources.
Well, what seems to be happening here, the article didn't spell it out, but there's another revenue stream happening.
Yeah,
So the farms are now more profitable than they were.
yeah.
And the kids are looking at it and say, this might be a good idea.
That might
for me
be
to do."
nice, absolutely. It is, I think, I've seen articles about this particular phenomenon. A lot of them come from the UK, where they talk about wind power as being something that there's a publication, I think it's called UK Farm Weekly or something like that, and I've had it appear at the blog a number of times, and it's always because farmers in the UK have either put wind turbines on their property or have put solar arrays on their property, and this gives them a new revenue stream. And
Bingo.
when you've got a solar array, you'd think, what can you do with a solar array on your property that
You can
helps?
certainly let cows graze under it,
Or sheep, not goats.
not goats.
Well, you can actually,
But
but
they like to climb on it.
they like to climb, so you'd have to have everything mounted high enough that they couldn't jump up on it. But you can put chickens under them. You can grow
Chickens?
Yeah, you can grow a variety of crops under them. One of the things about sheep, and this is true of other crops as well, is that some of the traditional grasses that sheep have been bred to have sheep graze on them will grow as well in partial shade as they will in full sun. So the sheep have just as much grass as they had,
You get a double whammy here.
yeah, you've got a farm field there which will hold as many sheep as ever, but in addition to that, you've got this second crop, which is the income from the.
Good way to look at it. This is another crop.
And we've seen many times pictures of ponies or cows or sheep or whatever under wind turbines, and just grazing
Doesn't seem to bother them at all.
contentedly. So here, what we've got, and there's a video here. The researchers, I've forgotten the woman's name, but she's got a doctorate. They talk about the value to the farmer of having wind turbines on the land, and these farmers just love it because it means they can do what they want to do with their land, and they're not.
And it's going to stay in the family.
It's going to stay in the family.
Which I think is a good.
The farmers I have lived in agricultural or areas much of my life, and the farmers that I've known were all people who were not in it for the money; they were in it for the lifestyle.
Correct.
And there's a lot of work in farming. It's not easy.
You got to love it.
You've got to love it, but they love it,
Yeah.
and because they love it, they want their children to be able to do it.
Yep.
But when their children are growing up, they're saying, "What am I going to do with my life?"
Yep.
And they don't. A lot of them don't. They want to have a certain level of prosperity, and they don't see their parents as being. When I was a little kid living across the river from Brattleboro in Winchester, New Hampshire, there was an old man who was half a mile down the hill, whose name was George Bolton. And we lived on Bolton Road in Winchester. We lived up at the top of Bolton Road, and we had a view that was unbelievable. And but he lived down the hill there, and he had lived in that house, I think, since he was born. And when I knew him, he was approaching 80. I think he was born in 1883 or something like that. And he would have been over. Yeah, he was approaching 80. And he was an old man, and my father had known him much of his life and said, I don't think that farm ever produced $600 a year in revenues. It was a traditional small dairy farm, which meant maybe there were 8 cows, but it had other things. It had
The hill farm.
it had a sugar bush.
Okay.
They made maple syrup. It had apple trees. It had I
At one
think
time,
pear
almost
trees.
everybody in Vermont had something like that.
Yeah, that's how it was done. It was a little of this and a little of that, and every day, every so often, I don't remember that it was every day, but he had a big cooler for the milk, and he had what was the unit called? Partial pasteurizer, something like that, that would help preserve the milk.
Okay. I don't know anything about that, but take your word for it.
Yeah. Anyway, this is the kind of thing that the farmers, when they see that you can put a wind turbine on there and it'll get you a bunch of thousands of dollars every year. That's a big help.
I would say. One of the a takeaway from the article is they did research on the economic impacts of wind power on property values.
Yes.
They did it nationally,
Yeah.
and the analysis point to neither a positive nor a negative impact on property values.
And that actually that study that they did, I don't think they said they thought that it was the most extensive. I don't think it was. It may have been the most extensive at the time it was done, which was 2013, but there was also one that was done for the state of Massachusetts, and that had 120,000 transactions in the sample thing, and I think it might have been bigger, although the
Same
one
results?
Oh yeah, it was just, what they showed was this was a huge test that was done by Lawrence Livermore and the University of Connecticut. And if you look, these people don't pull numbers out of the air the way,
I hope they don't.
some people do. Well, there are people who are in this debate who pull numbers out of the air, but they do a lot of work. They come up with a result. If you read their reports, it's very impressive. And what they had said was the presence of wind turbines near a property marginally increased the value of the property. And at the time that came out, I went over to Jason Cooper's office and I said, and of course Jason is really into renewable energy, but he's also really into real estate. I said, Jason, why would this happen? He said, George, that's easy. Because the wind turbine doesn't want the town to do anything for it, but it pays taxes. So it lowers everybody's tax rates.
Makes sense to me.
And then if you have the opportunity to have it in addition to that, give each of the farmers who's got a wind turbine or two on their property a certain amount of money every month, it can make a difference between kind of getting by and being prosperous.
I think so.
Anyway, should we go on?
Did we do this last week, or did we? I don't think there's enough left to do it today. I forgot my point.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll move along, and I'll get back to it.
Okay. We've got an item from the McClatchy Washington Bureau.
Federal court will hold first ever hearing on climate change science. This is a significant article.
Yes, it is. It is significant. A federal judge in San Francisco ordered parties in a landmark global warming lawsuit to hold what may be the first ever U.S. court hearing on climate science. The proceeding, scheduled for March 21st, will feature lawyers from Exxon, BP, Chevron, and other oil companies pitted against those for San Francisco and Oakland.
Well, what this judge is doing is he wants more information so that he can judge properly.
Yep.
So he's asked both sides to present a case about what they know about climate science.
Yeah, and what do you suppose Exxon is going to say about what they know about climate
They've been trying to duck the issue. That's what this case is all about.
Yes.
Basically, they knew what was going on,
Yes.
and they kind of obfuscated it.
Well, that's where the case comes from, is the fact that there's evidence that these oil companies had been.
They knew what was going on.
They knew what was going on, and they were trying to prevent everybody from finding out while they were making a lot of money knowing what was going on. And now the judge is saying we need to know what the science is behind this. And it's an interesting thing to see happen because there aren't many people in politics, and of course judges aren't in politics, but there aren't many people in politics who are interested in the science. They want to avoid the science. The people who are funding, it's interesting to me. Are you familiar with the term objectivism?
Yeah.
Okay. Objectivism, for anybody who doesn't know, is
Ayn Rand.
Ayn Rand. You know, we've got to be objective about things, so we're going to have a philosophy that says objectivism. And I will tell you, the relationship between objectivism and objectivity is exactly the same as the relationship between pravda and truth.
For those who don't know, in Russian, the word pravda
Means truth. But, you know, it's like you put a sign on something that says truth, and you just say, well, it's true.
Yeah, there it is.
And these, you know, I will maintain that there has been the people in this country have been hoodwinked, and they've been hoodwinked by hugely wealthy people in order to maintain the wealth.
Yeah, basically.
Grow the wealth.
I think that's a truism. That's the truth.
And for anybody who really wants to know,
Yeah.
try figuring out how much money you saved because Donald Trump reduced the taxes. And then compare that with how much Warren Buffett saved. Because Warren Buffett said his company saved $29 billion.
That ain't hay.
No, and okay, does Warren Buffett need that money? Do you need that money?
Well, a quick takeaway from the article. At the core of the plaintiff's lawsuit is the idea that these companies have long known about the risks of their products, yet they took a course of action that resisted regulation and sought to keep them on the market as long as possible.
Well, do you remember we had an item about who was it? Oh, it was a physicist from who had been in part of the development of the Manhattan Project.
Okay.
Teller, was it Teller?
Well, Edward Teller was the big guy, yeah.
He addressed a banquet for the oil industry. I think it was in 1959.
Okay.
In which he told them, your products are going to be causing climate change.
In 1959.
In 1959. Okay. Edward Teller, I think it was Edward Teller.
He had the credentials, didn't he?
Well, he not as a climate scientist, but certainly as a scientist.
As a scientist, he did, yeah.
And then, of course, I've forgotten which one of the Koch brothers it is, but he wants to have real science behind this, so he wants to do a controlled experiment, which means he wants to find out whether climate change is happening by finding another planet the size of Earth, putting a population on it as big as the Earth population, and then having no fossil fuels at one and fossil fuels at the other, so that we can find out 500 years later whether we are going to live on Earth or not. Okay.
This is the last item.
Yeah, it's from Renew Economy.
NEON.
Yeah.
NEON.
Yeah.
NEON plans the world's biggest solar and wind-powered hydrogen hub in South Australia.
Okay, and
South Australians, they're doing a lot down there.
That
picture
is the picture of where they're doing this, or roughly where they're doing it. The South Australian government announced plans to help renewable energy developer NEON build a 50 megawatt hydrogen electrolyzer. It will be powered by a new complex combining 300 megawatts of wind and solar with battery storage, enabling the manufacture of large quantities of renewable hydrogen, a green alternative.
Renewable hydrogen.
Yeah, a green alternative to liquefied
So it's
natural gas.
hydrogen that's not made from oil,
Yes.
and it's made using green sources.
Yes, and they're actually talking about exporting this stuff
That's what
from.
it's about.
And you know, I find it difficult to believe that they're actually going to export this stuff. I think they're probably instead going to develop, because it's a really good feedstock for chemical reactions.
A lot of things.
And
a lot of things.
they can do those chemical reactions, excuse me, and export the products. So if they were grabbing carbon, for example, from the atmosphere and combining it with hydrogen, they've got methane, or they've got propane, or they've got whatever it is, you know, Nane, whatever they want, and they can export that, and they can put a lot more money's worth of that into a ship.
That's probably what's going to happen. There is a market. There's a demand
Yeah.
for hydrogen in Asia.
Yeah.
And they're looking at that.
Yep.
But I think you're right. if they can turn around and put it into a product that uses their hydrogen.
Every shipload
there's-
carries more
there's-
money.
There's more profit.
Yeah.
in it.
Well, I think we're at the end of our rope, as they say. So maybe you should put us
30
both up,
seconds left,
and
so
we
let's-
can
let's
say
get us
goodbye
both
to
up here.
everybody.
Here we go.
There you go. So we'll say goodbye, and we hope you have a grand week. Let me put that up. There you go. Have a perfectly lovely week, it says.